What if I told you that the future of our planet is being shaped not just in big corporate boardrooms or at global summits, but on football pitches, in boxing rings, and inside stadiums all over the world? Today, we're going to dig into the surprising way the world of sports is stepping up to tackle some of humanity's biggest, most critical challenges. All right, let's start with a bit of a puzzle. On one hand, you've got a massive water crisis in a huge city, a drought so bad it's actually threatening local sports. And then, way over on the other side of things, you've got a program teaching girls to box in Nairobi, and one of the most famous teams in American football building a whole new community hub. I mean, what on earth could possibly connect these three things? Well, the answer is pretty amazing, actually. They are all these powerful, real-world examples of how sport is becoming a key player in this massive global game plan for a better future. Let me show you what I mean. So, to really get this game plan, we first need to look at the rulebook. And this is not just any old rulebook. You can think of it as a giant, global to-do list for every single one of us. And here it is, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. Just think of them as 17 big, interconnected goals for a more fair, more sustainable world by the year 2030. And the scale of this thing, it is a huge undertaking. And the scope is just enormous. We're not talking about small fixes here. We're talking about ending poverty and hunger, achieving gender equality, making sure everyone has clean water, fighting climate change, and, recognizing that none of this can happen unless we all work together. But, okay, before we go and crown sport as the hero of this story, we gotta get real for a minute. The industry has its own pretty significant footprint, and yeah, in some cases, it's actually part of the problem. And this is really where the tension is. On one side, you have the dream of what sport can be, bringing whole communities together, boosting local economies. But the reality? It can be a lot darker. We're talking about new stadiums pushing residents out of their homes, the huge environmental cost of hosting these big events, and even exploited labor in the supply chains that make our favorite jerseys and sneakers. But just acknowledging those problems, well, that's only the first step. Because when it's used the right way, sport can become this incredibly powerful and often really surprising tool for positive change. Now just take a look at this number, 78%. What could that possibly have to do with the world of sports? That's 78%. That is the percentage of young people in special programs, ones that use sports to teach job skills, who went on to find stable jobs. And get this, they started at just 3%. That is an incredible leap. It just goes to show how sports can teach things like teamwork and leadership, directly fighting poverty and hitting SDG 8, which is all about decent work. This quote really captures a deep cultural barrier that exists in a lot of places. But sports can absolutely shatter these kinds of stereotypes. You have programs like Box Girls in Kenya and Free to Run in conflict zones. They use physical activity to build confidence, to challenge those old gender norms, and to create safe spaces where girls can start to see themselves as leaders. That's a direct hit for SDG 5. And it's not just social issues either. Major leagues are starting to tackle environmental challenges head-on. Take the National Hockey League, a sport literally played on frozen water. They started tracking how much water they were using at their big events. And the result? Just the simple act of measuring led to huge conservation efforts, shrinking their footprint and contributing directly to SDG 6 for clean water. But some problems, they're actually getting worse. As you can see here, aid to agriculture has totally plummeted, while at the same time, the number of people who are undernourished has climbed past 820 million. This is a massive challenge for SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and it's one that really needs new creative solutions. So look, while all these individual programs are fantastic, to make a real lasting dent, the entire industry has to think bigger. It's about changing the fundamental rules of the game, but off the field. One of the biggest ideas is something called the circular economy. So instead of the old model of, take something, make something, and then waste it, this is a system designed for zero waste. It's all about keeping resources in play for as long as possible, which is absolutely essential for SDG 12, responsible consumption. And this is not just some theory, it's really happening. When the Georgia Dome in Atlanta was replaced, its debris wasn't just hauled off to a landfill. No, it was used as the foundation for a new community park. You combine that with water-saving tech and renewable energy, and you start to see how a stadium can become a model for this kind of circular design. But a huge project like that highlights the final and maybe most critical goal: SDGs 17. None of this happens alone. It absolutely requires teamwork. Take the Green Bay Packers Titletown project. It's a partnership that turned a bunch of parking lots into a year-round destination, creating a sustainable economic engine for the whole community. So when you put this all together, you just have to ask, what is it about sport, really, that makes it such an effective and unique tool for change? Well, it really comes down to a few core superpowers. Sport is a universal language. It can bring divided communities together. It builds connection. It gives athletes a massive global platform to raise awareness, and maybe most importantly, it creates these safe, structured places where people can really grow and learn. In the end, sport has always been a mirror, right? It reflects our society's greatest triumphs and its biggest flaws. But as we've seen, it has the potential to be so much more than that. So the real question we have to ask is, can it move from being just a mirror of the world to becoming a blueprint for building a better one? Thanks for joining this explainer.